Arriaga, this is chapter 1 of John Maxwell's 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And so if you have the PDF, we're starting on page 12. And a reminder that I use the acronym SOAP, S-O-A-P. S today stands for the section. We're reading chapter 1. O is the observation, and that's when you share between 1 and 3 observations that you are taking away from the material. It's how the material is speaking to you, and only you, uniquely you. There are no right or wrong answers. So basically just say, this is what I took away from the material. Your observations can also be indirect, which means that as a result of reading the material, it made me think of something else. That to other people may sound like, you sure you read the material? But that's okay. Share that as well. Or as a result of what somebody says or said, it also makes you think of something else. So it's basically the sixth sense, your intuition, that's speaking to you, saying something to you. Might be a moment of epiphany, but I suggest that you share those because usually those are the ones that are very important. They're significant, in my opinion. The A is for application, so ask yourself, how can I apply this within the next 24 to 48 hours? And the intent is to convert the material that you're learning right now into long-term material. So actions required, and this will help hopefully solidify that. And then the P is to pass it forward. This is an opportunity for you to share what you're learning with somebody else. It's an opportunity for you to help grow other people. It's a leadership opportunity. So a leader does not have to be a person with a formal title. It's just an opportunity for you to pass it forward. So I would take any and every advantage to do that. Look for opportunities or create the opportunities. There's got to be somebody around you, younger, struggling, who won't have the access to this material, so you can go ahead and share it with them or just share what you're learning with them. You're always looking to develop other people. So this is not just about you, it's about your ability to help encourage and grow other people as well. So we start off with the title, which is The Law of Intentionality. Growth doesn't just happen. So you have to take that literally. It's like it's not going to happen. You have to be intentional. You have to make a decision. And you have to say, almost for some of you, it's to have one of those never again moment. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I'm now going to move from here to wherever there is for you. So you just have to be intentional. On page 14 is my first observation. And so, he quotes the book James Allen, as a man, as a person thinketh, if you're using today's vernacular, desired vernacular. Fantastic book. Suggest that you read it more than once. It's a book to be studied, not read, probably about 2.5 hours long. So in the book, he writes, people are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They therefore remain unbound. So think about that. Not only do you know where this is true with other people, but if you're honest with yourself, this is probably true with you. Certainly some of the time, hopefully not most of the time. But we're always looking at our condition, our circumstances, and results. We always want to change that person. We want to change our boss. We want to change the people around us. But we're not willing to change ourselves, and your personal growth is an inside-out activity. It's all about you. It's you and up to you. Nobody else can do the work for you, but you have to change from the inside out, so you have to be willing to change yourself. So I wrote for observation number 1 is, my personal development is entirely in my hands, and it is up to me. Not up to my boss, not up to my employer, not up to my spouse. It's up to me. It has never happened on its own for me, and it won't happen on its own for you. Drifting and delays have caused me many years of pain, regret, happiness, and promotions. So you might be on a goal, you might be on a path, you may be on a trajectory toward a desired future state, but you still have to be intentional, because if you're not paying attention, If you take your eyes off the ball, if you take your hands off the wheel, you're going to start to drift. And there really are no exceptions. You never drift, and if you do drift, it's not, you don't remain there. You don't drift toward improvement. You don't drift toward a desired outcome. You drift toward a guardrail. You drift toward a gutter. You drift away from your goal. So when you're drifting and you're not paying attention, you're not being intentional, you're going to drift in a direction that when you finally notice, and you don't notice immediately most of the time, but when you finally notice, you're going to realize, I just gained 50 pounds. You're going to realize my marriage is on the rocks. You're going to realize that your job is in jeopardy. So that's what drifting happens when you're not being intentional. So I wrote that I have to be proactive and willing to overcome my fears. So everybody has fears, and you can be successful with fears as long as you learn to overcome your fears. And then I wrote that I will seek 10 rejections and or try one uncomfortable action a week. One of the things that I do with the people that I either coach or mentor or report through me, I encourage them to seek 10 rejections a week. And the purpose of the assignment is to get them to ask things and speak to people that they would normally not speak to. Ordinarily, they wouldn't ask for things. I'll give you an example. I travel a lot. When I go to pick up my car, I'll ask, do they have any free upgrades? It's not that I'm cheap. It's not that I can't afford it. And it's not that I don't tip when they say yes. I don't hold the money out in front of them. But the point is to get me to ask for things that I normally would not ask for. Same thing with the hotel room. Do you have any free upgrades? And so if you understand the law of averages over time, you're going to get more yeses than no simply because you're asking. So I would encourage you to kind of look at your life and look for opportunities where you can ask. Don't be cheap. I recommend that you tip the person if they say yes. But ask and seek for 10 rejections a week, because you're just getting into the habit of going outside of your comfort zone, asking for things that people will probably say, ordinarily would say no. You know the answer is no if you don't ask, so you have nothing to lose by asking. Observation number 1. Observation number 2 is on page 17. And so here he's talking about the law of diminishing intent, which says the longer you wait, that's code for procrastination, the longer you wait to do something you should do now. So if you're waiting to do something that you should be doing right now, the greater the odds are that you will never actually do it. And so I would imagine, I'm going to assume that this resonates for all of us. We all know that there's something that we should do. There's something that we ought to do, but we put it off. And the only thing that happens when we put things off is eventually we decide not to do them at all. We talk ourselves out of doing the activity. We convince ourselves that it's no longer important. And it really is working against your personal development, is working against your team's development, is working against the organization's development. So my observation that I wrote here is my delays are more often than not due to what I consider my acronym IDF. IDF is my indecisions, my doubts, and my fears. So you have your own version of IDF. So your indecisions eventually leads to doubts, leads to fears, and you don't do what you should be doing. So, and why do I have these fears? Because I'm afraid of being rejected. My pride may get in the way. I'm afraid of not being accepted. So what I wrote here is that my learning model of success, when I look at the things that have been successful, as opposed to the things that didn't work out so well, my learning model of success as a child was better than it was as an adult. Meaning that as a child, I was more curious. As a child, I was willing to experiment, to try things. As an adult, I don't want to be rejected. I don't want my feelings hurt. I've got too much pride that gets in the way. And so if this resonates with you, you want to kind of pay attention and just realize, well, what do I have to do, or what can I do differently? So then I write, there are times when I have sacrificed my dream, my desires, in order to people please. I may put other people ahead of me, ahead of my dreams, just because I don't want to upset them. Now, this is the old me. This is not the current me. I've changed. I've learned. But what I have here is like, say yes when I would say yes when I really wanted to say no, and I would play the mental recordings of my past failures. So in other words, here it is a situation. I'm going to please the person. I'm saying yes to a situation where I really want to say no. An example in your case might be you're asked to go out to dinner with a couple on Friday night. You really don't want to. You want to spend time with your spouse, with your family, but you're going to say yes because you don't want to upset them. You're wondering what would people think. That's just not helpful for your career. It's not helpful for your health, not helpful for your growth. So you want to get to the point where you're learning to say no. And so then I write, and I play my past failures. I remind myself of my mistakes, and I have learned to put pause on that recording and re-record a new affirmation that says, I'm able, I'm capable, I've gifted, I have a lot of potential. And I remind myself of my successes instead of my failures. So if it's meant to be, it's up to me. So now I practice saying no to the trivial. So I used to say yes to just about everything. Now I say no. I can't do all things. I have to triage. I have to prioritize. So what I do is I look at the thing. If it's trivial, I say no. And this way I can say yes and focus on what matters. So I learn to delegate. I take things off my plate. But if it's trivial, and if it's going to compete with something that's not trivial, something that's important, something that matters, I say no to the trivial. I do less of what matters the least so that I can do more of what matters the most. And so finally, I said, I've also learned to accept myself and to embrace the lessons learned from my failures and attempts at trying things that led to my growth. Or that lead to my growth. So you have to look at yourself and say, hey, you made a mistake. You've messed up. You have failed. And so have I, and so has everyone who's been successful. So you have to stop beating yourself up. You have to give yourself a pat on the back, give yourself credit because you tried. And say to yourself that because I made a mistake doesn't make me a mistake. Because I failed in the past doesn't mean I'm a failure. So I'm going to continue to make mistakes and learn and grow from them. I'm going to fail forward and learn and grow from them. And I'm going to keep trying. Because when you study the people who have been successful, all of them, no exceptions, all of the people who are successful, who have been successful, say the same thing. They have failed, they have effed up a lot, so they failed a lot, and they've learned from those failures. So the people that are not as successful or that are not successful, they're not effing up as much. They're avoiding failure. They're avoiding mistakes, and that's what's holding them back. So that's my first observation. My second observation is on page 17. Actually, that was my second observation. My third observation on page 21, it's talking about making the transition to intentional growth, asking these big questions. Where do you want to go in your life? What direction do you want to go in? What's the farthest you can imagine yourself going? And so these are good questions. These are open-ended questions. One thing that you want to take away is that any limitation that you have is a limitation that you're putting on yourself. We think with limitations, yet we have unlimited potential. But doesn't mean we all use our potential, because we all don't use our potential to its fullest abilities. But it certainly means that all of us, no exceptions, can do more, be more, have more, and give more. So my final observation here is that I either no longer allow my mind to compare myself to anyone else, or I immediately stop myself when I catch myself doing this. I think in terms of creation instead of competition. So your competition might be another company, that's fine. Or you're in sports and your competition is the person that you are literally competing against. But when you're working in your small business, medium business, large business, your organization, whether you're entrepreneur, doesn't matter, solopreneur, when you're working and you're leading a team, you don't want to create an environment where they're competing against each other. You want to create an environment where they're learning and growing, learning from each other and encouraging each other and growing, But the competition within is going to hurt your business and slow you down or set you back, and eventually can cost you your business. So then, let me see what else I wrote. Help everyone become successful. So you can actually help everyone become successful and not at the expense of anyone. Did you know that? Did you know that you can look at your entire team, your entire organization, and each one help them become successful without sacrificing anyone, not at the expense of anyone? So this is more than just equity. Everybody gets an equal opportunity. We get it. But are you pouring into everyone? Are you investing into anyone? And some people don't want this. Some people, they unfortunately end up destroying themselves. But for those who really want the help, for those that the application of when a student is ready, the teacher will appear. Those who want help, you should go out of your way to help them grow. I now think in terms of abundance instead of scarcity. So I don't think of a pie where if you take a slice of the pie, therefore there's less of a pie. I think in terms of the infinite pie, where you can have as much of the pie as you want. There will always be more and enough for everyone. So I'm trying to be mindful of my limited thinking, to remind myself that I do have unlimited potential. So do you. So I keep thinking in terms of abundance, opulence, unlimited potential, infinite pie. There's never enough, or actually there's more than enough, for everyone. And so my goal is to keep getting better than I was the day before. So today, better than yesterday, tomorrow, better than today. Doesn't have to be monumentally better. Could be 1% better, 0.1% better. But the point is that I'm constantly trying to grow. And this way I can help pass it forward to my team so they can grow as well. Let's see. There's a quote by Zig Ziglar, who has unfortunately passed away years ago, but just a phenomenal person for you to learn from. His quote is that you can have everything in life that you want if you're willing to help enough people get what they want. Now that's the opposite of how many people think and what many people were taught, because we're very selfish in ways. We're thinking about our career and there's competition. We don't create. I want to keep things to myself. That is not going to help you in the long run. It's not going to help your team. It's not going to help your organization. So certainly as leaders, we want to encourage to help as many people as they want, as you can and as you want. So for me, I certainly have adopted and adapted to that mindset where I have to go out of my way to keep helping people. And then my daily mantras is always in terms of being proactive, being intentional, helping other people. I'm not going to help somebody tomorrow. I'm going to help them today. I'm not going to do something tomorrow that I can do right now. So do it now, today, not tomorrow. And so those are my takeaways. So next, we go around the room. You will share your 3 observations that you've made, 1 to 3. And just a reminder that if you are the last or toward the last person in the group who's sharing your observations, even though it's likely that the people ahead of you have already shared similar observations that you would have made, I would highly encourage you to still share your observation. Say it in your words. You have your own voice. We want to hear your voice. Your opinion matters. Your words matter. Your observations matter. And so, you actually may say something and say it in such a way and use a word that causes somebody to think differently. Could be something that's so significant that changes their professional or personal trajectory. So again, take this opportunity for you to share your observations, even if it's fairly similar to what somebody else has said. So this is Rich Arriaga. I hope this is helpful. Have a great day.